Okay, thank you very much, Claire. I would like also to thank all the committee, organizing committee of CERMAC for this invitation. As said Claire, I'm not a mathematician, I'm a physician, and my specialty is interventional radiology. And I will talk about new procedure for treatment of liver cancer based on the use of irreversible electroporation. And I will focus my talk on what are current limits to apply this treatment. You will see that it's a little bit tricky, and probably mathematics could be useful for us to improve efficiency and safety of the procedure. So, we are talking about electroporation, and when we try to perform electroporation on cells, we have 4 strategies, and the first one is the former one is a basic experiment of cell reversible and not irreversible electroporation. To do that, we have to apply RF pulses into the tissue to obtain modification of cell's membrane, as you can see here. We can open some micropore, and when we stop the pulse, thank you. When we stop the RF pulses, the cells return at its basic state. I mean, pore close again. It's for this reason that we call that reversible electroporation. Of course, when we do that, we do nothing. We treat nothing because the cells remains alive. But if we repeat this experiment by adding also drug, I mean cytotoxic drug, this drug can take the opportunity of the opening of pore of the membrane to get in the cells and kill the cells. But here we call that electrochemotherapy, but it's rely on reversible electroporation. We can do also the same, practically the same experiment, one pulses and another pulses here, RF pulses, longer pulses, just to try to facilitate the entry of a large molecule, for example, DNA, to get inside the cells and modify genetic content of the cells and to achieve a curative effect. We call that electrogenotherapy. Again, this is reversible electroporation, but my talk is about irreversible electroporation. And to achieve irreversible membrane modification, we have to repeat, in fact, the pulses. This is very simplified, basic explanation of the difference between reversible and irreversible, but you have to keep in mind that the main difference is that we repeat these pulses, and if we repeat these pulses, we accumulate membrane cells modification, and these membrane cells modification are more deep and are irreversible. And when the cells lose its membrane function, it dies mainly by apoptosis. So, what's happened at the membrane, we applied a difference of voltage between the two, the bilayers membranous, and we obtain a rearrangement of phospholipid molecule, and we induce hydrophilic pore through all the membrane, and in these hydrophilic pores, some molecule can get inside the cells, and if we repeat the pulse, these hydrophilic pores are irreversible because we obtain definite rearrangement of macromolecular content of the membrane, and the cells lose the homeostasis control and keep in dying. So currently, we have only one device available for clinical use. It's this one. It's called NanoKnife. As you can see, this is a generator with producing RF energy. We have 6 connections. That means that we are able to connect up to 6 electrodes like this, monopolar electrode. Here, it's just a device to synchronize the pulses with cardiac activity, because one of specific complications of such procedure, because this is very high voltage RF pulses, we can induce severe arrhythmia. So we have to deliver these pulses during refractory phase of heart. So all the energy deposition is synchronized with cardiac activity. And this device currently provide, when we set up the RF energy deposition, provide a 2D diagram, as you can see. Each point is the positioning of for this experiment, for example, 3 electrode, and provides the distance between the probe, and normally adjust the voltage between each combination of electrode to provide the good setup of energy deposition to get irreversible electroporation. That's the current setup, but you will see that it doesn't work so well. It's for this reason probably that I'm invited to this meeting, because probably we can improve clearly the simulation of the procedure by using more advanced numerical model to explain what to predict what we can achieve with a given geometrical arrangement of electrode. So this is very simple. Sorry, I put that, but you are more expert than me to understand what it means. But this is the basic equation of calculation of dose that we are supposed to deliver to the tissue to obtain the treatment. And of course, you see that at least we have to insert 2 probes, 1, 2, and the distance between the 2 probes is, of course, very important to will modify clearly the amount of energy that we are able to deliver between these 2 probes. And very roughly, you will find in literature that there is 2 levels of dose. Below this level, I mean around 350 volts per centimeter, we believe that change in tissue are reversible. But up to 650 volt per centimeter, the change induced in the tissue are irreversible. So, you can see that, of course, if we increase the distance between the two probes, what will happen, of course, is that the treatment will be not complete during the between the two probes. This is clear. So we have two parameters, and we can set pulses magnitude. You can see that we are the device, the current device, can go up to 50 amperes. The duration of the pulse are very important. Currently, we work for irreversible electroporation mainly close to microseconds. And the number of pulses, I have already talked about that. We have to accumulate the number of pulses between each combination of electrode. And commonly, we set the generator to deliver up to 80 pulses between each combination of electrode. The rate of pulses is also really important, and you can see that when we go this way for all these parameters, we shift from reversible effect to irreversible effect. So at histology, we can induce something that we well know already with other ablation technology, mainly thermal technology, I mean radiofrequency ablation, microwave ablation, cryoablation. And when we perform thermal ablation, we obtain always coagulative necrosis. This is clear. And we can achieve that with electroporation also. But it is not this way of cell death that we target when we use electroporation. I will explain you why. We target this way of cell death, I mean apoptosis. Apoptosis is a slow process of cell death, and we can see this process with specific tissue preparation. You can see here, and you can see that many cells show that they are in the process of apoptosis by using tunnel preparation. And this is the most specific effect and researches effect of electroporation, irreversible electroporation. In addition, we have also an impact of course, on tumor cells, but also on non-tumor cells. I mean, vessel cells or bile duct cells. But these effects are very limited. And this is very specific, again, of electroporation against thermal ablation, because when you perform thermal ablation, and especially hyperthermal ablation, when you reach more than 600 degrees Celsius into the tissue, you induce directly coagulative necrosis, but also you destroy completely all this structure. This is not what's happened with electroporation. And for us, physicians, this is very interesting. That means that there is some small change, for example, on macrovascularization of the tissue, but the lumen of these small vessels still patent. And this is very important for select proper patient for electroporation. So, if I try to summarize what happened with electroporation, roughly, of course, roughly. We insert at least 2 electrodes. We deliver between these dipole pulses, RF pulses. This is typically a parameter that we use for irreversible electroporation. We try to reach at least 30 amperes. And of course, because it's RF energy, we have a small increase in temperature in vicinity of electrode due to Joule effect. This is like with radio frequency ablation, but because the pulses are very short in terms of time, only few microseconds, the diffusion of the thermal effect is really limited to the vicinity of electrode, and in fact the true therapeutic effect is this area in blue, where I call that pure RE effect occurs. And you can see that, of course, we try to, if that is the tumor, we try, of course, to encompass all the limit of the tumor, to ablate the tumor itself, of course, but also to achieve safety margin to prevent local recurrence by incomplete ablation, because often, beyond this macroscopic limit of the tumor, we have a microscopic invasion of the tissue, and this is really important to ablate the apparently safe tissue around, surrounding the tumor. So we have two pathways. This one is not really targeted, Joule effect, but only here, very close to the 2H rod, with direct destruction of the tissue and coagulative necrosis. And this one, which induce vascularitis by the impact on macrovessel, and direct membrane effect of RF pulse, inducing both apoptosis. And when we have apoptosis, what is very special is that after that the cells dies, there is a process of phagocytosis. And this is really important because the course of treatment zone are completely different than pure coagulative necrosis. That means that because we have phagocytosis, the treatment area, there is a trend of disappearance of this area during the follow-up. And we can see that with imaging. And this is important because, in fact, the difference to assess the treatment response is deeply different than what we do when we perform thermal ablation. I mean, in imaging, with imaging, RE zones are not necrotic, purely necrotic, but again, something with apoptosis and then phagocytosis. So, when we look at imaging after RE procedure, we are not supposed to focus on pure necrosis area, but something more subtle. I will show you what I call what I'm talking about. So, when we perform percutaneous ablation of solid tumor, for example in the liver, currently with radiofrequency, mainly with radiofrequency ablation or microwave, again thermal ablation, the schedule is that, of course, we perform the procedure at T0, but we have to check the response to the treatment. And commonly, this assessment of result of the treatment is performed 1 month after the procedure. Because if you perform imaging before 1 month, what can happen is that you can see also inflammatory change of the tissue, and for us, radiologists, it's very difficult to differentiate response to inflammatory change. Inflammatory change of the tissue due to the treatment can mimic a viable tumor. So this is mandatory to have at least 30 days to be sure to see only true therapeutic effect. And if you perform that with electroporation, you can see that at 1 month. I mean, true electroporative effect in blue again, and probably necrotic change due to Joule effect close to the needle. And of course, we have to follow up this patient, and commonly we follow up the patient every 3 months after that with imaging, MRI or CT. And because of phagocytosis occurred, all electroporative zone in blue disappeared. And what we are able to see during the follow-up is just necrotic area. So I put this slide just to explain you that that is the normal scale dot for follow-up the patient for percutaneous ablation with thermal ablation. But if we do that, if we apply this scale dot for electroporation, there is a hole here. We can miss something very important. I mean, we can miss the true extension, the true size of a treated area. Because during these early days, phagocytosis occurs. And you can miss that, and you can misestimate the true size of the treatment. So for electroporation, this is important, and this is specific to perform early assessment of the result, very close to the procedure. And in my institution, we perform for all procedure of electroporation, in fact, MRI of the liver at 3 days after the procedure to be sure to see the true size of the treatment zones. So I show you some image. This is the tumor before the treatment. This is a CT scan. We injected iodinate contrast medium to obtain 1 pass at arterial phase because this tumor HCC hepatocellular carcinoma are hypervascular. That means that there is uptake inside the tumor at arterial phase, and you can see the tumor is here. And this is the same tumor, but at delayed phase. We call that portal phase, I mean venous phase. This is the same tumor. We can, of course, appreciate the location of the tumor, but also the size of the tumor before the treatment. Just, we select for this patient electroporation because this patient received a few years before a resection of the right part of the liver. And for this reason, we were not able to perform just thermal ablation like radiofrequency because this patient had only the left liver lobe. And if we ablate that with hyperthermal technology, we took the risk of thermal injury of critical structure in the center of the liver, and we take the risk of lethal complication. And for this reason, we select electroporation to be sure to treat only the tumor and prevent any thermal injury to large vessel or bile duct, because here we have no chance to do that with thermal ablation. And of course, this patient, because he has had already received resection, it was not possible to resect again here this tumor because the volume of liver, remnant liver will be too low. So this is before the treatment, and we perform just after electroporation here 2 days MRI to assess the result of electroporation. This is here, this 4 image is without any contrast injection. Here, for MRI, we don't inject iodinate contrast injection, but gadolinium contrast medium. And here, these images are obtained before injection of contrast medium. And you can see that the tumor here is white, surrounding by something more black, you can see here. And with this other contrast, we can see that the tumor is still black and surrounding by something white. This is the same situation here with, we call that diffusion. And when we inject contrast medium, we can see that there is no longer contrast uptake of the tumor because it's necrotic tumor. And if we wait a little bit after contrast injection at venous phase, like here, you can see that all this area there is no contrast uptake, but the surrounding area here in black start to be filled by contrast medium. And this is obvious at a more delayed phase. Only the tumor has a necrotic change, I mean no contrast injection. And in fact, we believe that all this area is probably treated. This one is necrotic, but this one is not necrotic and probably treated but by pure electroporative effect. So this is another example. Just after the treatment, 2 days or 3 days after the treatment, the tumor is white on this contrast imaging and black here, surrounding by black, more larger area, black, white with this contrast, we call that T2. And when we inject gadolinium, we can see that the tumor still necrotic, no contrast uptake, but the surrounding area start to be filled by the contrast medium. And when we perform again MRI at 1 month after, 6 months after, and 9 months after, you can see that there is a clear shrinkage of the ablation area. This is very new, this is very specific of electroporation, because if we performed only thermal ablation, the treated area still similar all along the follow-up. Very small shrinkage effect. But here, the shrinkage effect is very important, as you can see, and occur very quickly. At least at only 9 months after the procedure, you can see that it starts to be very difficult to see the treated area. And what's disappearing is the surrounding area where there was a contrast uptake. Probably the true RE effect disappeared all along the follow-up. Okay, so now what is our strategy to insert electrode to perform such procedure? This is what we do when we perform thermal ablation, radiofrequency ablation, microwave ablation, all this technology. In fact, we try to puncture the center of the tumor, and we try to deliver the energy from the center to the periphery of the tumor. And in fact, the amount of energy decreases, of course, with the distance to the center. And what's happened with such technology is that the uncertainty, I mean, the risk of incomplete treatment is bigger, of course, is higher at the periphery of the tumor than in the center, because all the energy, the maximum amount of energy was delivered inside to the center of the tumor. Of course, we can use with these technologies more than one applicator, but you have to keep in mind that the result of such procedure is just the addition of a single ablation like that, and we have to, in fact, overlap several ablation zones to encompass larger tumor. In fact, RE is here. You can see that the probe here are not inserted inside the tumor and not in the center of the tumor, but in the periphery of the tumor. And we activate, here in this example, we have 3 electrode. That means that we have 3 combinations of electrode. And this is electric field created between each combination. And you can see that the overlap of these electric fields can encompass all the tumor and, of course, the margin. And this is important to understand that the maximum amount of energy is delivered in this situation at the periphery of the tumor and not in the center of the tumor. This is really, really important to understand that. So, for electroporation, currently, you can see this is a chart defining how much needle we are supposed to use to ablate tumor of 3, 4, or 5 centimeters. Quickly, you can see that to treat a tumor of 5 centimeters, we have to use up to 6 electrodes. Remember that with conventional thermal ablation, often we have to use only 1 probe. So technically, perform electroporation, irreversible electroporation, is more challenging. This is clear than formal thermal ablation. And for example, here, this is I call that the bull eyes view. This is the shame with projection of the needle, and this is what's happened when we look at the ideal positioning of this probe. We are supposed to insert them, of course, in strict parallel course. So this is another condition to perform nicely this procedure. And you will see that it's not always so easy to do that. So what are our tools to perform that? The device, the NanoKnife, provides this 2D chain here with 4 probes, and it gives us the distance. We are supposed to say that the distance between 1 and 3 and 1 and 2, and we are supposed to set up all this distance and set up, of course, the voltage between each probe per centimeter. And then when we deliver the pulses, we achieve this chronogram, and you can see that we have the amplitude of current here in this experiment. Between all combination of probes, we reach at least 20 ampere. But for this experiment, we increase a little bit the voltage to reach up to 30 ampere. So we use these chronograms to set up dynamically during the procedure the generator to be sure to deliver the maximum energy and to achieve complete result. This is an example of 4 centimeter tumor in the center of the liver. It's for this reason, again, that we select electroporation, because if we try to burn this tumor, we will have a severe complication by inducing thrombosis of main vessel of the liver. And the protocol that we applied to ablate this tumor was between 70 and 100 pulses of 90 microseconds. And we tried our target was to achieve at least 20 ampere, but preferably up to 40 ampere between each combination of electrode. And here, it was important, of course, because it was 4 centimeters, we decided to insert 6 probes. You can see that 5 probes were inserted at the periphery of the tumor, but one of them was inserted in the center of the tumor to ensure, of course, optimal coverage in terms of energy deposition of all the tumor, but mainly all the tumor were were inserted at the periphery of the tumor. This is the shame, the 2D shame provided by the device. He said us, okay, you have to use 6 probes and you have to insert these probes at this distance and this perfect shame, in this perfect arrangement. But this tumor is inside a human body, and human body, we have to deal with anatomy. And this shame was not, we are not able to follow strictly this shame in human body, because we have, for example, ribs, many things like that, we have colon, and we cannot pass all this structure. And so what we were able to do to treat this tumor and to insert the 6 probe is a little bit different than what we are supposed to do, as you can see. And it's what's happened on the skin of the patient. You can see the difference between the theoretical positioning of electrode that we are supposed to insert and what we were able to achieve. And this is the main concern with this result, of course, this treatment, sorry. So how we can address this limitation due to the tricky condition of this kind of procedure? Of course, we have to rely on imaging. I mean here, not follow-up imaging, but real-time imaging for guidance, to help us to guide the puncture, to be sure that we insert the electrode in a proper location. So we use, for example, fluoroscopic view with X-ray, but you can see here that we are able to display the tumor because we are able to segment the tumor from volume acquisition and display it on a fluoroscopic image. You can see that, of course, the patient during the procedure, he received general anesthesia, of course, but during general anesthesia, we still do breath, of course, and you can see that we have movement of the lung, but the tumor is stable. That means we have no motion compensation during the procedure. But you can see, of course, that the probe moves with the breath. This is normal because this is a real-time imaging, and the probe, this is a real visualization of the probe. This is a virtual visualization of the tumor using fusion technology. We can use also ultrasound, and I'm sorry, but here the video doesn't work, but we can fuse, for example, pre-therapeutic MRI or pre-therapeutic CBCT acquisition and co-registered ultrasound imaging and delimited the tumor and display it on both imaging during the procedure and insert the electrode using this image and also in the same time the ultrasound image. So this is really important to use advanced guidance imaging. So now I have a short video case. You will see all the process. I think it could be very interesting for you to understand what is our workflow. Okay, this is a young lady. Unfortunately, she has a colorectal cancer and she has a liver metastasis in segment 6. You will see that this segment 6 is this is not segment 6, I'm sorry, but okay, it doesn't matter. And it was very difficult to select radiofrequency ablation for the similar reason. Too dangerous for critical structure neighboring the tumor. So yes, we treated segment 4 metastasis, and it was located very close to inferior vena cava and very close to the heart. You will see that. And this is the situation. This is the liver. Here, this is the heart. This is the metastasis just below the diaphragm and the heart, very at the top of the liver. You will see on fluoroscopic image. This is the result of previous treatment because she received radiofrequency ablation and electroporation, but this is a recurrence. And this is the same tumor after gadolinium injection. So the tumor is about 35 millimeter diameter. So the result is for selecting electroporation was proximity of critical structure, precaval location, because when we perform thermal ablation, we have other limitation. When you have very large vessel close to the tumor, you are not able to eat properly. I mean, the blood flow continuously cool the area that you try to eat. Here, because we don't, the cells does not rely on thermal effect, this limitation no longer occurs, okay? And of course, we have also in history of this lady a failure of radiofrequency ablation, so we have to change our strategy. So I hope that, okay, it works. So this is our operative room. Here, this is an angiographic suite able to perform CBCT acquisition. It's like a CT scan. I will show you. This patient received general anesthesia, is currently sleeping, and we prepare a 3D acquisition of all the liver by injecting iodinated contrast injection. We have heart electrode to monitor cardiac activity. And this is the acquisition of CT scan volume of all the liver. And this is the image that we obtain, and we are able to segment the tumor. On this image, you see, I draw the contour of the tumor to be able to display it in 3D on fluoroscopic screen. So I check that the positioning of area is correct, okay? And then I'm able also to load all this 3D data on my ultrasound machine to co-register. You see, this is ultrasound image, and here this is the volume of CBCT scan completely synchronizing during the procedure. So I will use this ultrasound combined with CBCT acquisition and also fluoroscopic guidance to insert this probe. This is the first one. This is the tumor, and one of the first one is at the periphery of the tumor, as I show you on the chain. So now I'm able to check the positioning of the first needle by using just fluoroscopic guidance. And I have to, of course, this tumor, I have to treat it by insert at least 5 probes. So I repeat the operation for 5 probes. Again, using ultrasound combined with CBCT acquisition by correlation, fusion image, and fluoroscopic guidance with virtual display of the tumor. Okay, so this is the second puncture. So for us, this is very interesting to use cross-sectional imaging to perform such puncture, of course, in addition of fluoroscopic image, because fluoroscopic image, you will see that, allow us to check that the electrodes are roughly parallel. This is important. This is difficult to assess that with cross-sectional image. So this is the second probe. You can see now we have 2 probes, roughly parallel, not strictly parallel, but roughly parallel, okay? 3 probes. We use ultrasound guidance to be sure that we select another part of the periphery of the tumor. Again, to assess the whole geometrical arrangement of electrode, we will use fluoroscopic image. We have now 3 probes. This is a bull's-eye view, and this is the progression view, just to see the depth of the puncture. This is the 4th puncture. So this is the heart. You can see with ultrasound here, just you can see here this is the heart on fluoroscopic image, but also you can see that with ultrasound it was very, 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 very close to the heart. So now we perform this 5th positioning. And then we have to check if we cover properly all the tumor, because the task is to be sure that we will treat all the tumor. And you can see here that probably there is something, the lower part of the tumor is not completely covered by the arrangement of electrodes. So I can check that with stereotaxic reconstruction of the probes. This is the initial CBCT acquisition, but we are able to project the virtual course of all needle. And I can see that I confirmed that the lower part of the tumor was not completely covered, and so I insert 6 probes during the procedure. So this is really important for us to have some data during the procedure to adjust what we perform. This is very difficult to have a full prediction of what we will do during the procedure. So during the procedure, it is really important to have tools for us to adjust what we are supposed to do. So now, okay, we have inserted all the probes, and we start to set up the generator. Yes?
How long does it take to position all of the probes?
Ah, ok. Je ne sais pas si je peux arrêter ce truc-là pour répondre à la question. Ah mince, c'est pas ça qu'il fallait que je fasse. Bon, je vais répondre à la question. It depends. Here it was very specific, challenging case. So, but we measure in our experience that about 11 minutes for one puncture. This is the mean. Sometimes it could be longer, but sometimes shorter. Ok. J'espère qu'on va pouvoir avancer un peu le truc. Mince. Je sais pas si on a la barre de... Merde, j'aurais pas dû faire ça. Ouais. Bon. Okay, this is, it doesn't matter. I can skip the end of the procedure. You understand? I think you understand how we proceed, and what you have to keep in mind is that we are not able again to all predict, and we need tools to adjust our procedure. Many tools rely on imaging, but probably we have addition of simulation, numerical simulation, during the procedure, and before the procedure, of course, but during the procedure also, could be very useful for us to adjust, for example, the number of electrodes and the positioning of electrodes, because we are not able to perfectly match with theoretical geometrical model provided by the device. This is clear. It will never happen because we have to deal with anatomy of the patient. So what is very interesting for us is that we try to perform the best puncture, of course, and then when we achieve that, it will be very interesting to us to know if what we will achieve in this situation. And in this situation, the tools say us that the treatment will be incomplete. We can adjust, we can add electrode, we can perform a second procedure to cover all the tumor. So, this is the result for the lady after the treatment. Yes, you can see that we achieve a necrotic change of the tumor 2 days after the procedure. Okay, this is control. You see the necrotic change of the tumor. This is the area, larger area of ARI, and inside the tumor itself is necrotic, but surrounding by hyperemic area, probably due to irreversible electropoietic change. So, this is interesting. That is coming from the team of Claire Poignard. I provide all my data to this team to help them to find good numerical model to predict the true size, the true volume, and the limit of the electroporation treatment. So currently, as you can see here, they are able, this is a real chronogram that are provided from the device, but they are able to simulate it. And then, because they are able to simulate this chronogram, they are able to apply a 3D model to predict, for example, irreversible, what we believe to be irreversible inside this line, and what we believe to be reversible change inside this line. And you can see that this shape match very well with the shape that we found with imaging. And of course, this is not real-time data, but if we are able to have that during the procedure, many change could be happen in terms of efficiency. This is clear. You can see on this example that the probe were not in parallel course, of course. So, you can see the simulation. This is a very nice picture. For me, this is a dream. I would like that it will be real in my practice, of course. You can see that the dynamic change, and they are able to simulate all the procedure. Okay, so now this is what we are able currently to perform with electroporation. Mainly I perform ablation in the liver, but you can see that there is some initial experience for pancreatic cancer, but also kidney and prostate. This is interesting because prostate, kidney, and pancreas are deep organs, often close to critical structure, and this is very difficult sometimes to treat with thermal ablation, especially pancreas. So the electroporation for such area are very interesting. It is interesting also for prostate because prostate is a very small organ, and as you know, perhaps when we perform surgery, we can perform surgery for prostate because this is not vital organ. So we can resect prostate very easily. But when you perform that, we have many functional disorders after. The discomfort of the patient after such resection about sexual function, many things like that is completely degraded. So here with electroporation, probably we can ablate the tumor without any such discomfort. So this is our experience, our clinical experience for liver tumor. Just quickly to show you that we select for this study, this initial study, 58 patients. There were two groups. The main group of 48 patients, we selected ARI because the tumor were in not favorable location, and in this small group of 10 patients, we select ARI because the liver disease, the underlying liver disease, because of course they have cancer of the liver, but the cancer of the liver was due to chronic liver disease, and the liver function of this patient was very, very, very low. And in this situation, perform aggressive treatment like thermal ablation and of course surgery, for example, is not possible. Because if you ablate with necrotic change or you cut a part of the liver, the patient dies of final liver dysfunction. And we believe that electroporation is safe ablation, soft ablation process, and they can tolerate it. It was the reason for this patient to select electroporation. And of course, during this initial experience, we treat many other patients, and you can see that we treat all these patients mainly by thermal ablation. That means that electroporation is not supposed to replace thermal ablation. It's just for specific patients. For one, it is not possible to perform thermal ablation. And you can see here that we ablate tumor smaller than 30 millimeter, and here between 30 and 50 millimeter, and here larger than 50 millimeter. Larger than 50 millimeter for us, this is very, very large tumor. We are not supposed to ablate such large tumor. And here, this is the number of pullback, I mean, additional cycle of electroporation, 33% up to 64%. Sometimes the treatment was incomplete, unfortunately. We assess the result with MRI at 2 days or 1 month after, and we see that all the tumor was not ablated, so it was mandatory to perform a second procedure. You can see here. And this is the number of electrodes that we use to treat this tumor. You can see that at least 3 probes, but for many patients, at least 4 and even 5 probes. This is the number of pulses that we have to deliver between each probes, combination of probes. And this is the result in terms of effectiveness, because there was 58 patients, but in fact 75 tumors, and these results are expressed for the tumors. And you can see that if we look at the complete ablation rate, we obtain up to 90% of complete results. This is very interesting because you have to remember that these patients were not amenable to ablative treatment using thermal ablation. So for us, this is very important result because if you don't have electroporation, that means that for this patient, we will have to shift for palliative treatment. That means not curative treatment. The target is not to achieve complete destruction of the tumor, but when we say palliative treatment, that means that we want just to give to the patient a treatment able to control the tumor, not kill all the tumor. So for this patient, electroporation was a true opportunity of curation. And this is survival rate. This is not important for you, but this is interesting for you. Of course, we apply this treatment because we want to be effective, of course, but also you understood that we don't want to experience complication for this patient. And this is the complication. We have a low grade of complication, and here high grade of complication. I mean, here we have a death related to the treatment. The death related to the treatment was due to liver failure, I mean liver dysfunction. And it occurred in the small group of bad liver function patients. That means after, this is possible to treat this patient with electroporation, but there is a level below it. We have again a risk of liver failure, unfortunately. But no complication due to collateral thermal damage or things like that. And this is important. That means that, of course, I said at the beginning of this talk that with electroporation we have a slight thermal increase, but this slight thermal increase is not enough to induce such complication. And it was the reason that for what we select electroporation. So this result confirms that this electroporation is quite safe technique to treat such a tumor. So this is my conclusion. Electroporation is clearly non-thermal ablative method, even if we have a slight increase of heat during the procedure. It's not enough to induce complication. So for us, this is very important treatment to provide to patient curative treatment not amenable with resection of thermal ablation. You understood also that ARI, our experience with ARI is at the beginning. This technology is in infancy, and for us, physician is technically demanding because we have to insert several electrodes in tricky locations. And so it's for this reason that we have to use advanced imaging guidance. But again, I strongly believe that we need also numerical simulation to help us before and during the procedure to adjust the conduction of our treatment to improve, of course, the efficacy, the safety, and probably also the time, the duration of the procedure, because you know that the time is money, especially at hospital. Thank you very much.